And the regular meeting of the Transgender Equity Council Policy Subcommittee will now begin. Good afternoon, my name is Track and I'm the staffer of the Transgender Equity Council. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. The city will be recording and posting this meeting to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. Board meetings are public and subject to Minnesota open meeting law. I will now call this meeting to order and call the roll so we may verify the presence of a quorum. Billy Kurek.
Present.
Davis Sensman.
Present.
May Brooks.
Here.
Melissa Berner.
Here.
Thank you. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access at the city's Legislative Information Management System, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. Alrighty, and I also put the agenda for you all in the calendar invite as usual, so you should have it. Is there anything anyone wants to add to the agenda? If not, we can hop right in. The first thing I had was just checking in on some of the ongoing kind of policy strategies that you all talked about in the last policy subcommittee meeting and or in the last TEC meeting. Starting with tenant opportunity to purchase and trying to get some kind of nudges out to council members to see what their perspectives are on that, and try to get that moving forward before the turnover of council terms in January. So I sent out a script to everyone as we discussed in the last TEC meeting. Has anyone been able to reach a council member with that and have any reflections on how it went? Does anyone have any thoughts on any next steps we want on that?
I have not called any council members, but I will tell you it was a really nicely done script. Thank you very much, Track.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did my best. Is there any support that folks need or think other TEC members would need to like carve out time to do a little outreach to council members? I'm happy to, whether that's like a Zoom call that we all sit silently on together while we do that for 20 minutes or whatever. I'm happy to help support that if you think that would be useful and you all want to make that happen.
Track, I think that you probably sent this out in the email, but if I don't live in the city of Minneapolis anymore, but I'm still an employee, I can still make these phone calls to city council. Yeah, it would still. Would it be as helpful? I guess I don't want to just.
I think it's still great, and I think it makes sense. Even more than emphasizing that you're an employee, which honestly gets you into a weird position, I would just emphasize that you're a TEC member. As a TEC member, you definitely have a voice that they like are explicitly in writing accountable to.
Gotcha. Okay.
Does anyone else have any other thoughts on how to make sure folks have the capacity to do it? I know calling electeds is not everyone's favorite activity, so want to support however is useful for you all.
No.
Alrighty, that's totally fine if not also. Just wanted to check in. Also, welcome Amir. Thanks for being here.
No.
Alrighty, that's totally fine if not also. Just wanted to check in. Also, welcome Amir. Thanks for being here. So the next thing we talked about was safe use sites, and I believe Kenzie was going to draft a letter. They couldn't make it today. They let me know beforehand. So I will follow up with them about that, but I don't think we have any other next steps on that right now. And then in terms of supplier diversity and getting LGBTQ owned businesses as part of the city's like targeted businesses they work for, the next steps that exist right now is the role in the mayor's office that would take on this work. They have hired a new person into that role. The position was vacant for a little bit. And I'm meeting with her, I believe, later this week to kind of like give her an overview of where things are at, help her get caught up to this conversation. And then she's interested in meeting with the TEC members who wanted to be a part of that conversation and the staff from Twin Cities Quorum to figure out next steps and how to actually move this forward. So there's not an immediate action to be taken, but just an update for you all that is moving forward. I know Davis, I believe, is one of the folks who wanted to be in the meeting once we pull TEC folks in, so I will be letting you know as soon as we're scheduling that. And then the big thing, honestly, is budget, and that's what I was hoping the majority of this meeting could be for. We talked a little bit in the TEC last month about kind of like how we want to move forward, and I promised to write you all a little like call email budget script as well to use in a few weeks. So separate from the tenant opportunity to purchase script, budget season is going to start to get hectic in like early to mid-November and be really intense the first week of December. You want to get calls and emails in before that, ideally, because it's just hard for council members to track anything that week of December when everything's flying around. And so that script I'm definitely still planning on doing. But beyond that, the other ways, kind of strategies we've used in the past to impact budget are one-on-one meetings with council members, which we have been working on already, and then testifying at the public hearings and writing a letter to council as the TEC as a whole, and then pulling in other people in your life to also send in your script or testify at public hearings. And I'm curious if any of those other strategies appeal to folks or they have other ideas of how you all want to address this to get your couple budget asks to happen in this year's budget, because there is a lot of possibility this year and a lot that can happen.
All right, so this is what I would say. Track, if it were me, and if you want me to do something like that, it would be helpful if you were to say to me, May, we, or committee, we need to have at least one touch per week between now and whatever. And I need, people to fill that in. I think, somebody whose gift it is going before the council and speaking, I think that would be great because they have to be prepared and they know that. But I also know that if you want me to do something like as simple as do the script, it would be nice if you were to tell me, ideally, right, we need like one touch per week, or we need, a different set of people per week to do that. Because then that would put the onus back on your committee or on your TEC members that this has to really be done in order for it to be successful. And I think I'm a novice. I don't know these things, but I know that you do. And I wouldn't be insulted or put out. I would just expect you to be helping me do my job the way it needs to be done. So that's me.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, May. Thank you. I think I've been trying to walk the line very carefully of like, as the staffer, it is very explicitly not my place to tell you what to push for. Mm-hmm. However, you're totally right, May, that like to successfully get funded the recommendations you all have suggested, you need to be reaching council members more than we are right now. Like each council member needs to hear from maybe not even one per week, but a couple TEC members between now and November 16th when they have the first budget public hearing. Each, like, at each of the 2 main budget public hearings, there need to be probably like 3 to 5 ideally testimonies about these topics. So yeah, I can kind of reframe it as like, this is not what I am telling you need to do for my priorities, but for you to achieve your priorities.
Right. Right.
That is what needs to happen. And if it's useful for me to like, if it's useful for there to be a sign up sheet where people sign up for which weeks they're going to reach out, like I'm happy to logistics any of that however is possible. But yes, I do think you all need to have a couple people testifying at each hearing. And I've sent you the calendar invites to hold for the hearings. And to be reaching each council member at least a few times. And I'm happy to support or make clear or ask on that, however is most useful for you.
I think that for me, you know, and I realize everybody else might be in the talented and gifted class, but for me, it would be really helpful because again, you're in more experienced people on this committee. You're in a better position of knowing how to get the job done, right? And so that's why I would say that. And I have been on other things where we have all actually been at a meeting and the job, one of the things we did was we carved time out in the agenda where we all just sat down, took out our cell phones and like called Congress people or called our senator. And even though it was an answering machine, you know, we had a script to read and we read it and we got it done. And that was and somebody said those touches make a difference because that's an official record. You know, it's official. It's official for the person on the other end of the phone that you would stop and do that. So that's all I'm asking is just, you know, help me out and say, this is your job, or this is, I'm going to need you to do this extra amount of time. You got enough bodies, I think it would probably happen.
Totally. That's super helpful. I can send out just like an open, let's hang out in a Teams call for folks to come and do those calls and emails during that time. And I can also send out a sign up for who can testify at each budget public hearing, and then I will support people on like drafting what they're going to say and what that would look like, if those feel like helpful ways to accomplish some of those things. My videos are not working well on Teams today, so I can only see Billy. So if anyone is like nodding or giving me facial expression responses or thumbs up, I am unaware of it. So would love to hear from other folks, either like in the chat or verbally, what feels useful to you. If those are the things you need, if there are other things you need, if there are other things you think other TEC members need in order to make some of this happen.
Track, you were saying that the budget gets really intense between, you said the 16th until the first week of December, or was it the first week of December? I think that would be helpful too, to know like what, I know that we have calendar invites for the budget hearings, but knowing when it gets like super intense, and maybe we could do like another call or set up like more of a phone bank situation on those days too. Just because sometimes I do just like blindly accept those calendar invites, you know, and like almost forget about it until I get that reminder. So it'd be nice to get like an email or something like, you know, attention, something like that, so I can move it to the front of my brain, you know.
Totally. And seeing Davis's comment in the chat as well. So in terms of timeline, the first budget public hearing is November 16th. The second one is December 1st. The council members are like working on and talking about the budget between those two, but between December 1st, that second public hearing, and December 6th, when they have the final public hearing but vote on the budget right at the end of that public hearing, so not that much can change, that week is amendment markup week. and almost all of the like amendment drafting, amendment changing, frantic back and forth happens that week. I cannot fully explain to you why that's the system. But so the strategy is to get ahead of November 16th or definitely ahead of December 1st, because it's just really, they are getting way more emails than they can possibly track between the 1st and the 6th. And then like a follow-up nudge, definitely having people testify on the 1st is helpful, kind of a like reminder, you've been getting emails about this, we're still thinking about it, but your best chance of both council members and aides having the capacity to answer is that like just pre-November 16th or those last 2 weeks of November. And as I believe Malaysia said in the last TEC meeting, definitely copying aides, or even emailing aides and copying council members, because they're the ones who have more capacity to see everything in their email and who are like doing some of the legwork to actually make the things happen. Is that helpful, Billy? And I can definitely send out like periodic Teams calls that are kind of strategically scheduled. I'm not going to send, I will send out something for pretty soon to do the tenant opportunity to purchase calls and emails, but I'm not going to send out any budget stuff until closer to mid-November. Also because I think honestly we need to get on the other side of the election on November 2nd before council members really have time to do anything again, since most of them are running for re-election.
Yeah, be helpful.
Totally. Melissa, seeing your comment about city email or personal email, I don't think it matters. If you feel like by sending it from your city email, it would be read as you speaking like as an employee instead of as a TEC member in a way that would be complicated for you for any reason, feel free to send it from your personal. Obviously, you're on the TEC in an employee capacity, but that's still a different thing than just like being an employee advocating around budget. So I think it's mostly what feels comfortable for you.
All right, I'll think about which one would be best. Maybe send them both. So they both have my name in it. I'll send one as a TEC member employee and I'll send one as a ward resident.
Perfect. Are there, in terms of like recruiting people to also call, email, testify at public hearings, whether that's asking your friends or whatever that would look like for you, what I think that I will say, taking May's advice, I think that is another strategic thing that needs to happen, is having a couple more voices than just the TEC. What would be useful for me in order to help make that happen?
I think the prompt honestly was good. Being able to give a prompt to somebody who might be hesitant about calling because they don't know what to say or they've never done it before. I think just giving someone something tangible to say and like feel confident in that, you know, passing that along to friends with your permission, if we could just pass that along to people, I think would be super helpful.
Totally.
Is there like a story that comes with that? Like why we're doing this type thing?
Yeah, Amir, I don't remember if you were on the email where I originally sent it out, but I'm going to resend it with the calendar invite and make sure you get it. There's like a short little script, but the background context is basically just that the TEC heard a presentation on tenant opportunity to purchase and is interested in tenants having more ability to own their buildings cooperatively when landlords sell them and not just automatically getting displaced. So that's the like very, very short background, if that's helpful. And the other thing, Billy, to what you said that I can kind of include on those Teams invites I'm going to send out are both like, this is also a time you can use to sit and text people you know and ask if they'll do the thing, like anything you need to do around this, and or like folks are welcome to forward this on to the people who also might be willing to call or email if they got to like sit in a supportive space and do it. So I will include that in the invite as well, if that's helpful. Does anyone have any strong preferences on whether these like open calls, opportunity to call invites are like during or after the workday?
I'm assuming that if it's during the workday, you have a stronger probability of reaching council member or an aide.
On a call, probably yes.
Are they even answering that, the 2201, 22 lines? I don't think they'd be answering them.
No, you would have to call a cell phone. We have cell phones for some people and not all of them. Yeah, their office lines still go to voicemail because everyone's working from home. It's a good point.
This is May. I would think part of the, before I answer the question, it would be, what is the most value, or are they valued differently? As in, is it important that you hear my name and my voice on the answer machine, or is it really important, more important, or maybe even have a different importance if I call during the workday to talk to a person, right? Because what I want to make sure of is, if I'm going to call during the day and I get a real person, God help me, what if they ask me a question that I'm like, okay. So I just want to make sure that when we make the opportunity available for, after work or during the work day, that the caller is confident, right, in how to engage, as in, I'm making a declarative statement, right? As opposed to, I don't have to ask any questions, do I? I'm just making a declarative statement. You see what I'm saying? I just need to know what my job description is for during the day as opposed to after work.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. I think there's a little bit of value to having you connect directly with someone instead of leave a voicemail, but as Melissa pointed out, office phones go to voicemail and we don't have cell phone numbers for everybody, so we're mostly talking voicemail regardless. I can definitely take a double look at the script again and make sure that it is clear enough that folks will have their talking points, and can also just put in language encouraging, like, it is fine if you don't know the answer to a question. You can say, I forget exactly what we talked about as a TEC. Like, I'm going to follow up with other TEC members and get back to you. And I'm happy to support people who run into any questions they feel uncomfortable with. But yeah, I can work on the script for that. I think my question about during the day versus after work was really more about, like, what would be accessible for you all. But if it feels pretty split, we can just do some of both.
I can get with that. Like I said, I'm trying to be, I'm trying to make sure that I deliver on what my job is as a committee member. And I also want to make sure that I bring the best value. So that's really helpful, and, for you to even entertain that thought or the idea behind it. So I appreciate that.
Totally. Does anyone have any? Oh, I'm now echoing out of your computer, May, so I'm going to mute you for a second. Sorry. That's really weird. Does anyone have any other thoughts around what would be useful for them in order to get more TEC members and more other folks in community turned out for some of this budget work? More TEC members and more other folks in community turned out for some of this budget work.
Track, would it be helpful or useful at all to track, like, if we get friends or other people to call in, does that even matter? Like, put that on a spreadsheet? Or
I think it is useful for us to track how many people we have, like which offices they're reaching and what they're hearing back from offices. So yes, that would be useful. And I can make a spreadsheet for tracking that. Also seeing a question in the chat, can the TEC collaborate with other organizations on this budget work? If there are partners you want to bring in or just connect with and hear what they're doing and like spread ideas back and forth, you are more than welcome to. Curious what you're interested in, what that would look like for you all. If Amira, you have ideas, or if that was just a like hypothetical question. But yeah, you are totally welcome to hear what other organizations are doing on budget, amplify it, ask them to amplify your asks, however you want.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was just asking. I think it'd be a good idea to work in coalition with other groups that are doing budget work. That'll help boost up everybody's asks.
Totally. Yeah, and I will say if there's anyone you know who is connected to other orgs, or if there are orgs that you're not connected to but want to be connected to and want me to do some outreach to, I'm happy to help with building that coalition as well. Is there anyone would want me reaching out to in terms of like coalition building and amplifying budget asks?
I can ask my professor, Brett Grant. He works for Voices for Racial Justice, and he does a lot of work around the budget. He brought in some people in our class to talk about the budget. So I'll ask if he's doing anything around Minneapolis and how we possibly can collaborate. Because then they have a bigger reach to other organizations too.
Totally. That would be awesome. Thank you, Amir. Is there anything else anyone needs in order to feel like equipped and supported to do this outreach work around the budget? Also, is somebody else starting and stopping the recording to this meeting, or is it just glitching? Because it keeps telling me we've like recorded 4 minutes and then stopped, and I don't know what happened.
No, it says on my end that you're recording still, and it's been recording for like 30 something minutes.
Okay, fascinating.
Yep,
I
mine
don't know
says
what.
that.
Okay, don't know what my end's doing then, but that's great. It means we probably successfully have a recording the way we legally need to. So I'm just gonna ignore what I'm getting in the chat. Sweet. Is there anything else folks need to feel supported in doing this outreach work? Because that's really what we had on the agenda today, was just brainstorming for budget.
Can I plug the Minneapolis United for Rent Control? They have like a really good website with like common question answers type thing. If that might be helpful for folks. I know that they have a very detailed, like you could just like read it off there and like have it pulled up if you're calling about the tenant opportunity to purchase, or any other questions about rent control and what's on the ballot.
That's super useful to know. Thank you for that. Does anyone have anything else? If not, I will send out some Teams invites and a sign-up sheet and spreadsheet to kind of track what we're getting, both for tenant opportunity to purchase and for budget stuff. I will write out a budget script and send it out on the other end of the election. And thank you all so much for talking today, and May for the useful prompt to just like really define what needs to happen so we could strategize how to get that going. Looking forward to seeing what you all can do through budget season. And our TEC meeting is actually just next week because we had to move it a week early for Veterans Day. So I'll see you all again soon. Yeah, that's why the calendar is weird, if you had noticed that. It is on our first Thursday for November.
Oh, okay.
All right,
That's all.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.